As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Let's camera action, I'm ready to go.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. Today's guest host is Jesse, what is it?
Walking Man
The
Turner.
Walking Man Turner. There you go.
Woo!
All yours, Jesse.
All right. Good morning, New Haven. Good morning, world. I'm happy to bring you three of the most incredible teachers that I know, respected colleagues, and actually a former student as well. But we're going to bring you Rose Reyes, a bilingual teacher of 25 years from Windham, Willimantic, Connecticut. Oh, a powerhouse in her own way. And Jessica, and I'm going to mess up her last name, but she's going to forgive me. Okay, yeah, I love it. And Jessica was an incredible student of mine, and she is a teacher of 7 years at Pulaski Middle School in New Britain. And then, of course, I also have my highly respected and esteemed colleague, Dr. Shirley Jones, with us. And we're going to be talking today about recruitment and retainment of diverse teachers in our public schools. And for me, that begins by deeply listening to diverse teachers. And yeah, they're with you today. So let me start off by asking each of them to give me just a sort of a minute introduction about who they are, and how we'll begin with Miss Reyes.
Hello, thank you for having me. I started here. I was a teacher in New York City for 3 years, and then through ARC, Alternative Route to Certification, I applied to the shortage area of bilingual education. I've been in Windham for it'll be my 18th, 19th year in bilingual education.
All right, no problem. Jessica, you take us next.
All right. Again, thank you for having me here. We are, I'm situated in New Britain. I was born and raised there, went throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, went to CCSU, and now in Pulaski Middle School teaching 7th and 8th grade language arts.
Wow. All right, Dr. Jones, you're up.
Hi, I'm Shelley Jones, and I attended school in Bridgeport, Connecticut, graduated from Harding High School, then went off to college, to Spelman College, and now, after about 27 years in education, I'm at Central Connecticut State University with Jesse, and I teach a lot about culturally relevant math and why culture matters in education and certainly in math.
I have a feeling that will pop up today as we discuss how do we recruit and retain diverse teachers. Let me start us off with this question, and we'll go down the line. If you were in charge of the world, right, what policies would you initiate? Where would you spend Connecticut's tax dollars to recruit and retain minority teachers of color in our public schools? What would you do? And Rose, we'll start with you. Just one idea. Let's share one idea first.
Okay, so those resources should go directly to our staff.
So you're up. You're
Oh,
saying
yes,
so
I am.
resources
Well,
going to the staff, but
sure.
what about to CEOs and?
All right.
and
Let me
yeah.
interrupt real quick. Can you just turn that mic head towards your mouth? Right there.
All the way?
Turn
There
it
you
towards
go.
your mouth. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, can you pull that one towards you?
Closer.
Yep. And pick it up. Point it up. Yep. So you're there. This way you're talking into the mics.
So no, Jesse, it just can't be one thing, because when you present just one thing, you assume that there's some sort of sequence to it. It's a multifaceted, simultaneous process, and it has to start with a genuine belief that this diversity is necessary for us to have children who are thriving, and responsive. So it would be about, for sure, adequate training, mentorship, and real close monitoring of the work environment that our teachers of color are in, for sure.
All right, perfect. Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that. I think the training, um, as teachers, we get a massive amount of training, and I can count on my hand over the 7 years the trainings that I thought were relevant and actually needed. And I think that you know there's this current trend of restorative practices. There's this talk of culturally responsive and culturally relevant teaching, but it's different when you know you have a document that says the school is going to do this or the state is going to do this. What does it look like in action? What does it look like in practice? So those professional developments that are given to teachers and mandated by the state, we need to look at what our current state is like and what our kids currently need, and really allocate resources or allocate money to the resources we already have. We have resources in our schools. Now let's cultivate those resources. And by resources, I mean teachers. We have teachers who are, who look like our students, who grew up like our students, who understand our students, even if they don't look like them. Let's invest in them in the ways that matter, not just here's a new curriculum rollout. Here's 2 days of PD.
All right. So, and Dr. Jones, your take on this? You talked about culturally relevant.
Yes, yes.
Does that have a say or
Yeah.
a place?
Let me first start with the recruitment. I know there are school districts that try to recruit teachers of color, but in order to recruit teachers of color, it has to start in elementary school, in middle school, in high school. Students have to see teachers that look like them or at least know of their circumstances. So teachers have to learn about students and their communities. But let me tell you this, at the college level, when we are looking for pre-service teachers, people to come into teaching, we need to go outside of our realm here in Connecticut, let's say. I'm talking about Connecticut. We need to go down to some HBCUs, some historically Black colleges and universities. We don't do that. How do we think we're going to recruit teachers of color if we don't go to Hispanic universities where they serve Hispanic universities? We need to reach out further than what we do.
So if I'm hearing this right, one, Rose is saying there's multiple things we need to do. Jessica's saying, hey, what about those PDs? And you're talking about the sister from Spelman telling us, hey, if you want to know what universities and schools are producing high quality, diverse teachers, we should be going to the historically Black colleges who have teachers are passing the same test, making all the certification requirements. Or Rose, you were in Puerto Rico, same thing.
And also consider the grow your own program
Absolutely.
within the district and supporting the individuals who have made a commitment to be in the community and who understand that community for sure. We have the largest gap of representation is the Latinx population in terms of student to teacher ratio. And I think a lot has to do with language and the Connecticut's stringent expectation about dual access, so to speak. I'd rather recruit a teacher from Puerto Rico who's top notch and then teach that person English as opposed to, well, do they know English first? Right.
All right. So one of the things I would be out of place if I didn't say, first of all, there are 3 consistent research facts that teachers of color, diverse teachers, are already making a difference. They're already making a difference for all of our children. And the research indicates that includes white children. So that's one piece. And the fact is that we're losing. Teachers are leaving our profession, at least within 5 years. And for an anecdotal piece of information, for me as a teacher educator, I'm hearing we're losing our diverse teachers even quicker. So
Well-
can we address what would it take? What does it take?
So I would advocate that no teacher of color should go into any building alone. So that district needs to make a commitment of a certain percentage. First of all, they have to be in touch with their profile, the demographics of their district, their reality, and what is the percentage that they need to be obligated minimum. So I am now alone again. I've lost two young promising teachers, an ESL teacher, a special ed teacher, who happen to be bilingual, and also they're both women of color. This is year 3. And they said, this is too hard and this is too isolating. So as a strategy, I would definitely look for a cohort presentation. The other piece would be definitely assigning mentors much longer, and having a regular support group to process the particulars that make it difficult to connect.
And if we thought about that piece, going back to something that Jessica said earlier, that means putting the resources directly at that school level,
Exactly.
not in our State Department of Education, not dissing them, but saying that not in private our recs, consultants or
We're done with
CEOs or whatever, people from outside. But what we're talking about, to do this, we need to put our money next to in the schools, next to those teachers, and that we shouldn't have them alone. We were gonna, one of the guests that couldn't have today was Michelle McKnight, a wonderful black math teacher in Manchester, Connecticut. And Michelle, sometimes she was at a salon that we were doing once, and Michelle said, "I'm the only teacher of color in my school, in my school building, not her school." But that's that piece. So Jessica, your take on this? Are you alone in your school? I don't know.
I'm not alone. But in my classroom, I'm essentially alone with the 27, 28 students. And what I find to be so difficult is to get them engaged in something that's not reflective of who they are. Teaching a curriculum that is not inclusive of their culture, that isn't, they can't see themselves in what they're learning. We can't expect them to be super invested in it either. So one of the most difficult things that as someone who's biracial, I have a hard time even feeling invested in my own teaching sometimes, because I don't see myself reflected in the curriculum. And when you teach for a certain amount of time, you start seeing that what you're teaching and what the students need are disconnected completely. I've had to implement my own cultural, like Spanish Heritage Month. You would think with a place like New Britain, especially Pulaski, huge population of Spanish speakers from all different places, and it's not reflected. You don't see it, so I've had to implement it myself. It's sad to say, even Black History Month comes around and we might talk about it in isolation, but it should be something that includes the entire school. It should be this outpouring of celebrating your culture. And so what I think ends up happening is people, they become frustrated with what they're teaching and knowing that I have to teach this because I have to meet this standard. But my kids don't need that. My kids need to see themselves in what they're learning about. They don't need to keep on going over skills for a test.
So before I let Dr. Jones jump in, I want to reflect on that piece right now, because we've had recent legislation in this state that talks about Black and Latino history courses in our high schools. That's one. So, and I think others will join in on this, but there's this piece in literacy that Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, a Black scholar and researcher, has always talked about this curriculum, what we read, what we write about in school. She said, these are our mirrors, our windows, and our sliding doors. And she says, just like you said, I need to see myself in the things I read. I need to be able to write myself into the things I write. but she also talks about the power of literature is when I can see others. And if I could step through the door that allows me to walk in the shoes of another, she says that's transformative. So that's what I'm hearing you say. Dr. Jones, come on, you're going to jump in on this.
Well, first of all, my heart is breaking to hear that this is still going on. We have a curriculum that does not reflect the children we have in front of us. And so my specialty is math. And most people think math is neutral, but math is very cultural. We use math, we use numbers for the money that we'll receive. We use math in our communities in so many ways. And our students need to know that the people in their communities are smart people. You know, so the teachers need to learn about their students' funds of knowledge. What are the students coming in with? Because they're smart. When we are at home with our families, we always talk about the people, the kids we see at our family reunions. Oh my gosh, he's so smart. But all of a sudden they go into the classroom and they go in and they're a blank slate. Well, no, they're not. They come in with culture. They come in with knowledge. And so that's why I agree with both of you that we need culturally responsive teachers who teach culturally relevant, whatever, pedagogy, math, literature. And that means what are the contexts of the problems that we choose? Are we going to choose a context that has to do with puppy dogs and cupcakes? Sure, kids like puppy dogs and cupcakes. But what about choosing something from their community? What do they do in their community? And we talk about real life math and real world this and that. Whose world? And so teachers really need that professional development to understand what culturally relevant means, culturally responsive. We use both of those terms, what it means and how to do it in practice. But I'm going to tell you, it takes work. It's not just changing the names. So we have a Jose or so we have a Raekwon. It's not just about changing the names. It's not just about Hispanic Month or Black History Month. We have to go deeper. And if the schools don't do it, shame on them, because that's why we're losing kids and that's why we're losing teachers. The teachers don't feel invested because they can see the kids with the blank stares like, Miss, why are we learning this?
And if we understand culturally relevant teaching, this does not mean the exclusion of anyone from the curriculum. So it isn't that we're going to say that the curriculum is now all of a sudden it's Latinx curriculum.
What do you mean all of a sudden?
I'm just saying. Never. But we're not going to say that the curriculum is an Afrocentric curriculum solely. What we're going to say is it's a curriculum that's going to look like this tapestry of America. That's what we're going to say. Now, Rose, something we were talking last night, and you talked about, Rose had this comment she said to me, and I don't want to take it all away. I want her to talk about it. She talked about, she just returned from Puerto Rico. I think she spent the month in Puerto Rico during an amazing time. But she talked about the teachers in Puerto Rico and the art in the schools.
Right. So
versus here.
Right. So I participated in this Teachers Institute, and we were given the privilege of looking at alternative programming, and it was just, well, we're in Puerto Rico, so we're going to take our culturally relevant piece and embed it into the curriculum, and even in a rather challenging community, the children's artwork was more vibrant, more detailed, because they were in their element and their culture, and they were allowed to express it, and they had that. The adults had that expectation that they were going to express it, and it brought me to tears, because when I have my second grade students, and a majority of them from Puerto Rico and Mexico, or first, second generation, but they're in the neighborhoods, it seems limited, and it's almost like a cry of some sort, and that is because they're out of their element, because learning is a social process, right, for them. And they need to be accepted of who they are and what they have as skill sets. And we have been given a mandate, especially through corporate education reform, that they have to set those aside and ascribe to standards that are not connected to them. And I just saw it as like, wow, we have been really hurting ourselves and hurting our children. We really have. And our demographic reality is that I am in a building that 85% of the children are Latino, right?
We're also in a time where the first time in our history where 49% of our children in our public schools
Nationwide.
are diverse children,
Right,
nationwide.
nationwide.
We're also at a time where 49% of our children live below or at the poverty level in our nation. We haven't had that level of poverty and inequity since the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that we've never been there income-wise,
Right.
but we have never been here
And that
in
chronic.
diversity-wise.
And that chronic,
right.
you know, that long lasting.
Right,
Yes.
that piece. So when we're thinking, because it's interesting, I hope Connecticut legislators, I hope Connecticut policymakers, and I hope the Connecticut State Department of Education and our unions and all our community activists are paying attention. No one here is asking for you to spend more tax dollars, really. They're asking for you to give them the freedom to make a culturally relevant learning community. And for
That's
me,
fair.
and that's important for people to understand, and that we have a potential in this state to do that with the new legislation about Black and Latino history. Now, trust me, there will still be American history.
Mm-hmm.
I was an
Yes.
American
But-
history teacher. It is still in the school. It dominates the schools.
but
It's
it's
going
not
to be
worried.
there.
I'm
You
not
know,
worried.
it's about looking at something. So say you're still going to have American history, but look at it through a critical lens. Look at the multiple perspectives. You have to, even with what you're given, still pull in those different perspectives. You know, I'm going for my administrative certification, and
Oh no! A good
I
teacher
know.
leaving the class.
No. No.
We might
I'm
change that
crying.
rule. We might change the rule. Admins will teach. I think admins need to teach.
And I had a colleague in my cohort said that she didn't know about Christopher Columbus, what he actually did, until college.
Right, right.
And in
Mm.
my middle school classroom, I use storybooks. I teach 7th and 8th grade, but I use picture books to teach certain skills. And we read the book Encounter,
Mhm.
and they were like, "Oh my God, miss, that happened!" And I'm like,
Mm.
"You don't learn both sides. You don't
Exactly.
see that, and
So-
that's what we have to do."
I want to jump onto that because that whole premise, the umbrella is to decolonize our curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to own the reality of the mainstay, monolithic perspective about how great this country became at what cost. So,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yes, about perspective. And I was privy to a coursework in the Teachers Institute. It was the socio-political history of becoming a Puerto Rican.
Mm.
And what a concept. It was shape-shifting. It wasn't about the land, the country itself. It's like what happened to us? What was done to us? And how did we respond?
Mm.
So that's critical. That is awesome.
So
And-
this component, and I want to step back for a minute because I said this thing about American history, but come on,
Mm.
Black history is American history.
Okay, that's what I
Okay.
wanted to say.
you know,
Latin history is American history.
Yeah, but you know, when you say it, it
labor
sounds-
is American
it sounds
history.
suspiciously-
Immigration is American history.
It sounds suspiciously
Yeah.
co-optive. I take a grain of salt with that. You hear me, right?
I heard you on that, and I thought about it as soon as I said it. Yeah, you can
As soon as
forgive
you
me.
said it, I thought about
You-
it. We need Black history is American history, but we need a more complete and honest history.
Yes.
So I think that's a
Yes,
better
we
way
have
of
to be
saying
grounded
it.
in
Yes.
the realities.
In the year of 2019, where yesterday's New York Times
Yes.
just released the 1619 project, which talks about the first 20 African slaves being unloaded at Jamestown.
Mm.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and one of the essays in that yesterday was about how America's democracy, our founding fathers, were not true into African Americans made that democracy, that quest for democracy true. So yes, I'm there with that, and I hope you young ladies will forgive me for that little venture over there. But I also I do want to put some financial stuff into this.
Mm.
The average student in Connecticut is leaving our university $35,000 in debt. They can't buy a house. They can't buy a car. They're living at home. That debt is like a mortgage. It's not $35,000. You have to think like your mortgage. Some 5 times that amount later, and maybe 20 years later, you have paid off that $35,000. So I do would, and maybe I'll ask you, Jessica. I don't know. You've been recently in pursuing your master. Would it be helpful if we I don't want to say it because I taught in an urban district in Jersey City, New Jersey, where it didn't matter what color you are. Any teacher who wanted a master's degree, it was paid for.
Helpful.
And they didn't even care what the degree was in. I mean, there.
Yeah.
But would that be helpful?
It would absolutely be helpful. It would absolutely be helpful, especially because it's mandated you get a master's. Well, how about if we're mandating you to do certain things, how about you give me a little help? Because I'm all about, I went and got my master's in reading because I knew my students needed that. And it's not
And you
me.
were my student, too.
Yeah, I was your student. And it wasn't because I had some insider knowledge that no one else had. The data shows that our students they can't read at a level on grade level. So if it's not just me who sees it, if the state is, coming in and saying, we need to up the ante on reading and instruction and things like that. Well, how about you, instead of expecting it from teachers who don't have that background? I'm certified 7 through 12, so I didn't know how to teach students how to read. I knew about literature and Shakespeare, but you can't access Shakespeare if you can't read. So, if the expectation is that students come away and they make growth, then how about we invest in our teachers and say, hey, listen, these are the areas that we need some growth in. We're going to invest in you and give you the opportunity to get the education you need to be a better teacher for the students who are sitting in front of you that desperately need you.
And so if I go back before we do this, many, many years ago, I don't want to say how old I am, but I had the benefit of being the student of one Dr. Louise Mall, who the term funds of knowledge came to. And Dr. Mall would have us visit the homes of the students we taught and do surveys of the knowledge that are in those homes. And he wasn't only talking about the cultural things. He was saying, who are our students? We were in Tucson, Arizona. We were in Barrio schools. He would say, their fathers are welders. You can't weld. Tell us about that knowledge. Their fathers are masons. Their mothers are secretaries, are accountants, are nurses, are caregivers. Do you have that knowledge? And he was saying, when they see that, it's not only the cultural piece.
Right.
When you see the work of our parents in those books as well, and in that curriculum, and valued that knowledge. So it's not just where we come from. It's valuing what our parents do or what they're struggling with, and that's important. Yes, I can see Dr. Jones is coming in now.
Well, I want to read you something because you said anecdotally, but I want to read you some research from American University and Johns Hopkins. It says, and this happens to be specific to Black children, but it says having just one Black teacher in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade from a reduced low-income Black boys' probability of dropping out of high school. So it reduces their chance. It says, and by high school, African-American students, both boys and girls, who had just one African-American teacher had a much stronger expectation of going to college. Keep in mind, this effect was observed even 7 to 10 years later. This was a large study with 100,000 elementary students in Tennessee and North Carolina. And so the research is there, and we respect Johns Hopkins, right? And so the research is there. And so if the state wants to work with the ARC program for, let's say, in terms of recruitment, what they might do, or whoever is in the ARC program, is they might try to recruit teachers of color and then have them do some type of assistantship or some type of internship in schools in the neighborhoods where they're needed. because the students do need to see themselves, because a student won't want to be a teacher unless they can see themselves as teachers.
Absolutely.
And so that's one thing that they can do, because when I got my master's, I didn't pay for it because I taught at Harding High School during the day, took classes at night. University of Bridgeport had a program that helped to do that. And I also got a stipend. And so there's money out there to do what people want to do to help this with recruitment.
So we have some similar experiences. So I have 2 master's degrees besides that PhD.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were free. One of them came with an internship that paid me to teach in Montclair, New Jersey, a very affluent, cool school district where everyone had a better car than me, my students. But anyway, it was a wonderful experience over there. But I want to get back to that component. I'm not are we allocating the same resources to our teachers? Diane Ravitch makes a point, says, when people were talking about teachers don't need to be, we can like, teach for America or something. We can just come into the classroom, drive by stuff and all that. And I'm not really dissing them, not that piece. But there was a point where people were saying, well, why do they even need a master's degree? And Diane Ravitch makes a point saying, are you telling me that smarter teachers don't make better teachers? So that's one. But second, I want to give a shout out to the reason I'm a teacher today is because of Miss Stanfield, a black teacher who migrated from North Carolina to go teach in Jersey City, New Jersey, in my hood, educated me in high school in my honors English class, and taught us about Marcus Garvey, taught us about Malcolm X, and taught us about all the other stuff. It wasn't just that she was telling us who significant black figures are. She was telling us who Jefferson was, who Washington. She's in the English class.
Sure.
She was having us read Langston Hughes and not Dream Deferred, which is a great poem, but she had us the deeper stuff. Let America be America again, and question all that stuff. But so I want to give a shout out. So it's not only that it's going back to that research I said, that not only having one black teacher, and I had more than one black teacher. My own daughter only encountered her first teacher of color was in college. So she managed to go through all her schooling without any. But me, I had diverse teachers in that community. But it's a piece. One teacher, one diverse teacher makes a difference for everyone. So yeah, go ahead, sister.
Well, I'm still an advocate about, don't go into any club by yourself. So recruitment has increased. It is slow. The attrition rate has like almost doubled. That's the issue. The issue is not staying. So there is a path of recruitment, and it needs to be polished up and refined. But again, they leave you to your own devices. Once you've been recruited, and then you're pretty much subjected to whatever it is the district will present to you. So we have issues of structural isms, right?
Structural racism?
Isms.
Oh my God, you said it.
Your implicit biases, your selective incivilities, and the structured inequities, right? And they'll tell you what's more important. But I wanted to share with you the Michigan study about the issue of retention. And it says here that 19% of Black and 13% of the Hispanic teachers receive a low evaluation. So my suspicion is that minority teachers of color, get evaluated more severely because of the structural framework that they're in, because of the implicit biases that they have encountered, and also selective incivility is a nice way of saying, there's this attitude about women of color in the field, right? Meanwhile, the 7% of the white teachers is consistent across the study of receiving relatively poor evaluation. Here it is. So then you get more. You get counseled out, right? You don't get formally dismissed. They go, well, maybe teaching isn't for you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a push out effect. Right? And then the other piece that was important for me to see was that Black male teachers are also more likely to receive low evaluations. The friction between male teachers and female administrators. This goes back to the age-old issues of that tension between the races that is a social construct. I mean, that is what we have to chip away at.
So yes. So we're talking about a systemic racism that no matter what we talk about, reforms and possibilities,
Yeah.
is part of our national culture that has to be addressed.
So I
over
certainly
there.
don't want money be thrown at the very same
Right.
districts that keep replicating this shortage
No.
Right.
of the turnover.
So let me get back to this piece. So it's not throwing money at the districts. It's throwing money at the teachers. Here's what I'm finding, and it's not only my diverse teachers. A lot of my new teachers are thrown into what I would almost consider a war-torn environment with no resources, no supports, PDs that make no sense. Told that in districts where kids are suffering.
But that's because that's where the students are. They're in the Title I districts, right? They're in the high poverty urban rural areas, right? And they have limited resources, and there is no break for teachers of color there. None whatsoever. No support, no extra resources. The evaluations are still the same because of to be fair, right? Objective. The standards have to be the same, but our realities are different. I'm a teacher of color. I decided to support the bilingual students, and I still get hammered because in this state there's an attitude about bilingual education, right? Some of it is explicit, some of it is implicit.
Wouldn't you say that's national as well?
I could, but I know Connecticut.
Okay. All right.
Right? I've been here long enough. So what am I saying? You need to cut us some slack for sure to let us stay. I'm in my district 18 years because I hate to pack. And I have a point to prove, right? But I know the younger careered teachers, I'm watching them go there. I'm watching them leave. They're frazzled. They're traumatized. And I feel helpless. And I feel bad for that.
So I wouldn't call that giving them some slack. I would call it giving them some support.
Sure.
Giving them some resources.
Absolutely.
And last night we had a discussion on the phone.
Who,
Rosa,
you and me?
You and I talking about this. And you said something to me that I think is profound. You said, well, you often will say profound things to me, but this stuck out with me in this discussion because I was gearing us to the discussion today. And Ms. Rios, what you said to me was, because you were talking about a union issue, you said, I did not support giving extra pay to bilingual teachers in my district.
Bilingual
And
ESL.
she's the bilingual ESL teacher here. And you said, I couldn't support that because that would create tension and
a
division.
tiered system.
But what you did say was, you said to me, if you want to help diverse teachers, you need to lift all teachers in the school.
That's right.
You need to give all the teachers the resources they need to teach well.
Right.
You need to support all teachers in the school to teach well. And that's what I hear from my diverse teachers.
I think I was making that analogy about if you know that there's a benefit to all students if they're in front of a teacher of color, then if you treat teachers of color well, everyone else gets treated well.
So we're coming to a point where we're going to say some thank yous, and I'm going to ask you to do some summaries. We're not at a thing. It would be remiss of me not to say thank you to Tom Ficklin, who for 4 years has been creating a show that spotlights innovation, creativity, and courage in the social, political, spiritual realm. If you've ever been a guest on Tom's show, you know that this is a man who values truth-telling in our midst. And I love you, Tom, and I sure wish you were in the show with us. But I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to 103.5 FM over here. I want to say thank you to Harry, who does such an incredible job keeping this show. And it's just an unbelievable idea that there's a radio station given an hour to say, teachers, talk your truth. You know, most times I've got to call the mayor, the governor, whoever the CEO of a company is. So that's one. Rose, we got a couple of thank yous.
Yeah. Oh, holy cow! Yes, we want to say hello to
Keep it to a minute.
Joanne. Joanne Tolles. Hi, Joanne. Robert Cotto Jr. My reps, Robin Porter and Gary Winfield. My daughter Ava. Bishop Selders, Reverend Pollock, the WFP, Working Families Party for sure. People in my neighborhood. We have and my teachers from UConn, Dr. Rojas, Dr. Reyes, Dr. Helen Kay from CCSU, Dr. Darder, my activists, James Flores, Josue, Ava, Helen, Eva Lees, Millie, Sarah and Tony, Karen, Beth Ann, Werner, Dr. Torres, Dr. Anna Anderberg, who introduced me.
Oh, and those Connecticut badass teachers.
Absolutely.
That's right, because
Every
you are
single
one of them, and
Yes,
so
sir.
am I.
Thank you for
right?
reminding me.
We are Connecticut bats.
Yes,
so,
we are.
Is it Joanne and Jennifer Jury from
Yeah.
this town?
And remember Ebony.
Oh, yes, Ebony. Yes.
Hi.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry to take us on that tangent.
Wait, two more things. They're
Two
really
more things.
important.
Okay.
Right? The Labor Notes Conference for spring, the union work.
Oh, we're all going. That's in
That's right.
Chicago this year.
Yeah, and the Puerto Rican People's Assembly this Saturday at the
Woo.
Hartford Public Library.
Oh,
That's important because Puerto Rico has had people's assemblies since the government transitions, and it's just a nice opportunity to be there and to be supportive. You can be an ally, or you can be right in the middle of the trenches.
And if we do have some minutes to talk about something, but let me just make a point. If I'm reading what happened in Puerto Rico first, we had an education reform, a governor and an education reformer become the leader of the educational system, close 400 local public schools, and try to charterize the whole island.
Yes.
And it was teachers that led or were a major part of the rebellion. Now, I don't want to get into that because now the final piece that I'd like to hear from each of you is to share a little bit of your passion and to give us the hope because trust me is the hope that lifts all boats, and we need hope. So let's do the reverse of it. Let's begin with you, Shelley.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say hope for Rosa. Is it?
Oh, for me, Rose.
Rose,
Yeah.
and Jessica, and to teachers out there. Okay, a couple of things. You talked about being an ally, right? So right now in education, we need accomplices, right? We need teachers out there who are willing to come in solidarity with teachers of color, right? And so Rochelle Gutierrez talks about creative insubordination. And she's a little thing, but she is a fighter. And what she says is that we have to do things that maybe are not in the standards, right? We have to get out there, maybe go and knock on some doors, maybe bring in parents and people from the community just to learn about our students. But also, even in the classrooms, we need to do things that we know will help our students, whether or not they're in the standards. And so sometimes it's gonna creative insubordination, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're not doing exactly what you're supposed to do, but you're not gonna do anything that's gonna get you fired. But at the same time, if you have somebody who's standing by your side, that accomplice, you're gonna feel more support to do some of the things that you know that students need.
I'm gonna come back to that standards before we leave, but Jessica, you're up there.
My hope.
Yeah, you got hope.
Yeah, I
You're the one
certainly
that
have.
when I don't. The audience doesn't know, but Jessica and I reconnected recently, and it's always nice to meet my former students doing well. But I was so happy to hear she's not talking about leaving; she's talking about staying. And so many of my teachers right now, my really good teachers who were my exceptional students, are talking about leaving. So you got hope.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I want to change. There's a lot of things that I'm not entirely happy about, but I have to say my administrators at Pulaski, they've put such an effort and such willingness to tackle the problem at its core. And it's not that kids can't read, and it's that they don't feel connected. So let's connect with our kids. So, through restorative practices, we've really embraced meeting our kids where they are and getting to know them. And I think through that, really connecting with our students and building those relationships with our students, and the efforts toward that, we'll see an increase. It might not be dramatic. It might be bit by bit and small increase by small increase, but we'll get there if we tend to children as humans and not just data points. And I feel like, especially in Pulaski, my administrators, I thank them all the time because they've invested in me to get the education I needed.
I'm hopeful that I'm in the company of well-grounded, rational, and wide world perspective seeking individuals, and that they are not afraid to share and not afraid to take a chance.
My hope is that our Connecticut State Department of Education, our legislators, and our policymakers start doing what medicine does. Start talking to your teachers. Medicine talks to doctors. Medicine talks to nurses. Medicine talks to caregivers. Medicine talks to patients. We need to start talking to them because the answers that we need, I know, are right there in front of us. They're right in our schools right now teaching. And you three are not only incredible teachers, but you also are so active doing so many different things beyond just the classroom. But anyway, peace, love, and hey, New Haven, thank you, Tom, for giving me the chance once again to be here.
Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you're going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never